Ridge Racer! We're back playing cool video games. And what is cooler than Ridge Racer on the PS1? Little interesting fact. This little loading screen thing, Namco trademarked having a mini game in your loading screen, which meant that for a long time no other games could have little games like that in their loading screens, and that lifted recently. So you start seeing that more in other games now. But yeah, for a long time nobody else was allowed to do it. So what are we doing? Course beginner, car, little red car, track 1. Okay, Ridge Racer. I love Ridge Racer. What a game! This was a launch title for the PS1. Whatever year that was, 95, probably. And I didn't own a PS1 at launch. I was a latecomer, as I've probably mentioned in countless videos before. But this was one of those games that you saw in the arcades when you're on holiday, and you would see this on the demo kiosks at Electronics Boutique and that. And just like in that age, when I was at home with my Mega Drive and then seeing these visuals on a home console, it was completely mind-blown. And it's a bit hard to take it kind of in context now. Similar to a lot of the 32-bit launch titles, and I probably talked about this when I did my Sega Rally video, in that these kind of arcade ports, they were exciting at the time because it was cool to have these kind of visuals and this type of game on your home console. But the scope of them was they were an arcade game. So like Ridge Racer, it's one track basically. I mean, it sells it as 4 tracks, but it's not. It's variations on one track with slightly faster speeds, similar to your 50cc, 100cc's in Mario Kart. But back when this released, it kind of didn't matter because you had an arcade game in your home, and it was really exciting. I think what I would compare it to is you can imagine like a VR game now. They could probably sell me a great VR racing game that had one brilliant track that was like well crafted and looked amazing, had realistic visuals and things, and a couple of cars that were beautifully like modelled, and it all works brilliantly in VR. You could probably sell me that, maybe not a full price, but 20 quid. I would jump in at that now because it's a new experience, and that's my comparison to like these launch machines. Just the scope, the expectations of what the games should be was slightly different. But I mean, this wouldn't fly now, would it? Imagine if the PS4 had launched with a racing game that had one track and 2 cars. You wouldn't be buying that, would you? There we go. So the power slides are Ridge Racer's bread and butter. And if you've played any Ridge Racer game before, you appreciate this. Going into a corner, you kind of tap the brake, and it just instigates this huge power slide where it's like you're on ice, and you just point the front of your car in the right direction, and it's brilliant. It doesn't feel realistic in the slightest, but it doesn't matter because it's an arcadey racing game. And game over. That's your one track done. But of course, that's not it, because we can select the mid-level track, which is, I don't know. I don't think there's actually any variation on the track itself. It's just it goes faster. So we'll change our car. We'll get in a faster car as well. I'm getting this cool yellow car. And what track should we put on? Put on Speedster. So yeah, I still find Ridge Racer really exciting, even though it feels very primitive now. And it was soon succeeded by a load of sequels on the PS1. Released Ridge Racer Revolution soon after this, which was like a bit of an unofficial sequel, and they released Rage Racer or Rage Racer. I can't remember. Rage Racer, I think. Yeah, Rage Racer. And then finally Ridge Racer Type 4, which was like a huge game. It had tons of tracks, tons of cars, and it looked absolutely incredible. That was kind of a later PlayStation game. But, you know, just for pure nostalgia blast, I still got that hard with Ridge Racer. Oh, I forgot on the... oh, crap, I'm struggling with the speed, aren't I? On the variations of the tracks, they changed the weather. So we got a bit of sunset look. Bit of a filter on the horizon. Oh, I'm struggling to get the lock the power slide in. I don't know if it's this car or more likely my ability. But I'm struggling a bit more on this one. I think one of the things I was talking to a friend about this recently. With when the PlayStation and the Saturn launched, and we were getting games on CD all of a sudden. One of the things it's easy to forget now is it wasn't just about the visuals being incredible and being all wow. The sound was such a massive thing at the time, because all of a sudden you're getting CD audio, and you get a game like Ridge Racer, or Wipeout is a great example of it, where you were having like real music by real artists that sounded like, well, I mean it was CD quality music, and we just hadn't really had that before unless you owned a Mega CD. But we were just used to MIDI audio in games, and you know, 16-bit chiptune stuff. It's all very, you know, we know that now, and it's a thing. But that was just the norm back then. And all of a sudden to have these like cool games, these cool racing games with like the Prodigy soundtrack in it, it was brilliant. It was so exciting, and I think that's a big part of the PlayStation's push into that market, and what the PlayStation did when it launched. You know, in the UK, just speaking as a UK teenager that grew up then, the PlayStation was all of a sudden attracting this like older market, and you know, FHM and stuff were covering it, and it wasn't just like kids' games. It was much more like not even teenagers, just older than that. And I think the music that was available in these games was a huge part of that. I remember borrowing a friend's PS1 because I had a Nintendo 64 because I was a Nintendo kid, and borrowing a friend's PS1 because I wanted to play Final Fantasy 7, and playing FIFA Road to the World Cup '98 on it, which, you know, was a football game, and there were amazing football games on the N64, so it wasn't anything out of this world. But I remember the intro sequence had like this little FMV intro with Blur Song 2 on it, and it was so exciting, and that's hard to imagine now why that would be interesting, but that wasn't a thing that was in games. Like, it was real music. And I remember like getting my dad to come in and look at and just watch this intro sequence. I was like, look at this, look how cool this is, it's so cool. And it was just because it had Blur's Song 2 on it. So I think that's easy to forget when we look back at games like this, and we look at the visuals and go, oh wow, you know, this wasn't possible on the Mega Drive. For me, the music and Ridge Racer's music so good, on the fact that you can choose your music track and stuff, and that was really interesting at the time. It was really exciting. Game over. I wish it didn't say game over every time. I wish I had a bit of an, you know, more enthusiastic thing to say. So the high level track, it adds on this new section, look. Let's change a car again. I'm thinking this slower car. Let's put Rotterdam Nation on because it sounds like Eurotrance. I don't know if it is, but... So that lady there with the sign, I don't know as if she's the same lady that was in the later Ridge Racer games, but... What was her name? Reiko? She was like an announcer or something in the Ridge Racer games, and at a certain point became like the mascot for the series. And again, this totally shows you the target audience of the PlayStation. But she was just like CGI lady that would get on the front of like GQ and FHM. Alongside like Lara Croft and stuff, but she was just a classy Japanese lady who held up a sign at the front of the race. Nothing more than that, but that does tell you a lot about the 32-bit era, doesn't it? But I don't know if it's the same character in this game, or if that's just generic lady. leaving the floor on this one. So each of these like extra difficulties, so I'm on like the high level one or whatever now, they increase the speed. So it's not just the track changes, they just overall increase the speed that everyone can do. And that does make it harder because it's how you tackle the corners, and that sounds like such an obvious thing to say, but Ridge Racer's mechanic is this power slide, which I'm absolutely failing to do at the minute. And, you know, judging which corners you have to do it on. Because it's a skill, like controlling that power slide. There we go. God, the pop-up is horrendous, isn't it? Like, those buildings are just popping up so close to me. There's a variant of Ridge Racer that's available that I've never played, and I'm interested in playing it, called High Spec, Ridge Racer High Spec, or I think it was called Ridge Racer Turbo in Japan, and it came, I believe it came bundled in with Ridge Racer 4, and it's basically this same game. It's the first Ridge Racer, but with the graphics cleaned up a bit and at 60 frames a second rather than 30 frames a second, so it should be really nice and smooth. And as I say, I've never played it, but I'm really interested to check it out, because I can imagine that is wonderful. I played this at the arcade recently, and having it, you know, at a higher frame rate with higher resolution visuals was massive, because I only know this from playing it on the PlayStation. Oh crap! It's my only experience with the game, really. Like, this is Ridge Racer to me, but of course it was an arcade game for a good time before it came out on the PlayStation. Ooh. Oh, I didn't really need to slide around that corner. Like, I'm controlling this car a lot easier than that big yellow one. Okay, final lap. Yeah, such a nostalgia blast with this game. This is just the mid-90s for me. And to be honest, it was the kind of game that I was missing as an N64 owner. I mean, I've talked about fighting games in other videos. I think racing games were another big one. Obviously, the N64 had Mario Kart, it had Diddy Kong Racing, but in terms of these kind of like big arcadey racing games, I mean, what was I playing? Top Gear Rally, Top Gear Overdrive. I had a few like the Cruis'n USA games and San Francisco Rush, but I mean, none of them, they weren't Gran Turismo and they weren't Ridge Racer. You know, they weren't even Colin McRae or... It was something I was missing. Then again, if you were a PlayStation owner, you were missing GoldenEye, and you were missing Banjo-Kazooie and Mario, weren't you? You had Croc and Medal of Honor. That's that one corner where all the buildings pop up. It's really bad in that section. I wonder if that's improved in the high spec one that I was talking about earlier. I wonder if they've improved the pop-up. The pop-up, pop-in, pop-up. Okay, let's try this last difficulty. So that was high level. We got TT. Time trial? Possibly. We're going to stick with that car because it was quite good. Rare hero. Let's check out the options. Oh, there's a music player. That's nice. Exit. Okay. TT. This might just be a time trial. Oh no, there's another car. There's one other car. Oh, actually started slightly better than I have any other time. liking this track at night time. But it's a bit mad to think that we've just sat here and experienced all of the content of the game. That was all of it. But I just don't think I cared at the time. I mean, I'm saying all this as somebody who played this, you know, probably 2 years later than when it launched. But I'm comparing it to Sega Rally, which I did play at launch, and that had 3 tracks, and I only really played one of them. Like, I pretty much played the desert track, and I was obsessed with that game, addicted to it. I think in the same way that when I was completely hooked on Super Mario Kart on my Super Nintendo, I wasn't playing Grand Prix every day. I was doing time trials on my favourite tracks. You know, I was basically doing time trials on Mario Circuit. Oh, it's fast, this one is. Sun's coming up. How do you feel about this announcer? Hype man. I think I quite like him. Oh, I can't believe I had that bad crash at the end of that lap. That's really slowed me down. Okay. Oh, and again. You lose so much speed when you crash. Oh. There was a Ridge Racer game on the N64, Ridge Racer 64, and I never ever played it. I don't remember it particularly reviewing well, but I think it came quite late, and if it was anything like this, but come in, you know, a couple of years after all the other big racing games, I can see why it might not review well, just based on content. But I never played it. I'd be really interested to play it, because I bet it looked great. I bet it performed a lot smoother than this as well. I'm going to try and check that out. I wonder how it was with the analog stick on the N64 controller. I bet that was quite a nice way of controlling it, because this is just D-pad only. You know, this was well before the DualShock came out on the PlayStation. Well, I've lost this, haven't I? Have we still got another lap? Okay. Final lap. If I can nail a lap, I feel good about doing this. But I'm kind of worried that I can't nail a lap. Although, smashed that corner, didn't I? Oh. I wish I had a rearview mirror so I could see where my opponent was, because he looks like he's quite far behind me on the mini-map. Maybe not if I keep doing that though. But yeah, I'd like to see him coming up behind me so that I could try and block him. Oh, we've still got this section, haven't we? This is the tough section. Okay. Slide around here. Slide around here. Oh no, we don't need to do that. Oh my god. Oh! Come on. He's catching up. He's right behind me. Done it. Oh, my heart is beating. That was fun. That was really, really good fun. I mean, I'm looking at my recording clock though, and that's 20 minutes. We've played through all of the tracks. But I mean, I had a blast. That's not an M, is it? My name's no. Yeah, I had an absolute blast. That was amazing. I haven't played that for years. But how cool. Where did I come on there? Oh, first. Yeah, totally brilliant. I'm going to check out the Ridge Racer High Spec. Yeah, I'll record some. We'll take a look at that because I'm really interested. I only read about that just before I hit record. I was doing a bit of research and I'd never heard of it, so I'm going to see what it's like. And I hope you'll join me for that because I think it's quite fun looking at Ridge Racer. So if you can, join me. Drop me a sub and you'll see it pop up in your little feed. And I'll see you then. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye.